Another story, another section where he deals with the same thing is, where is it here? 149, page 149. Beyond names, beyond words, again. So here we have again a very important idea here, that when I do awareness, I'm aware of this, I'm aware of a bright yellow light in my face here. I'm aware of something yellow, bright. That's awareness, okay? I'm aware of some blackness there that has crisscrosses, and that my biological mind now tells me that that's some kind of a crate. And now I'm aware of yellowness here, and then I recognize that as a pole holding up a lights, things like that. Okay, when I do a series of awareness moments like that, every time I'm aware of something, I'm naming God in a certain way, because each of those awareness moments is another name of God, and another way of describing reality. If I go on for 3 hours and aware of a million things, then I'm not basically tabulating the glory of God, all these things that add up to the Hebrew is covid, tangibility. Glory is translated in Hebrew as covid, tangibility of God. Every moment of awareness is another tangible moment of reality, experience. You call it God if you like. Okay. So here in this chapter, he's going beyond names, beyond words. So what does he say? There are two kinds of names in the world. Sometimes I call a person who, because they're far away, I need their attention. So when I say I'm aware of that brightness, light over there, brightness over there, yellowness, I'm paying attention to that. I'm giving contact. That's a moment of contact. Then he says, now imagine there's something else. There is somebody I love very much, and I can't stop saying their name. It's the deepest depths there is. You know, there are relationships, you know, where we find ourselves trapped thinking about that person, or feeling about that person, whether we like it or not. You know, that love idea, that something bigger than our rational minds keeps popping up like a, you know, like sometimes like a nightmare. All right. So after, he says here, after Abraham entered the covenant with God, God revealed to him that the covenant is that place which is no name. It's beyond, like we said, beyond the spiral, beyond the being able to say I'm aware of this, aware of that. It's that getting to the place where the opposites are so extreme and your need is so great that you're able to go beyond the opposites, like the performer that's on top of his drum collage material, and somehow mock those elements and be freed from them, and then living here and now. So that's the other kind of dialectic, which is beyond, he calls it beyond choice, beyond the x and the minus x's all the time. So here's another way of talking about the same thing, but in terms of naming. So when I see the word Hashem, to me what that means is the naming. I translate that as the naming of God, not so much as the name, because the name implies one thing, you know, whereas the naming process is endless. That's how I see it anyway. Okay? And on the next page here, 150, Shlomo says, the beginning of Vayera is Abraham Avinu having the highest God revelation. But what is so deep is that God didn't say anything. Right, that's exactly the rhythm of contact and withdrawal. The extremes are so opposite, so there's nothing to say, you go into the void, and there you find some new ideas, and the void comes out of the silence, out of nothing is happening. Or if the void comes out of sounds, they're on a level of pre-speech, which I demonstrated before, where the sounds are coming from below the level of, you don't have a daydream where you're saying to somebody, hello, I see you there, blah, blah, blah. Rather, usually the garble of sounds and images is very disorganized. It's coming from all kinds of places because your unconscious there is much, pre-speech is much freer than rational speaking. So it's, in a sense, it's non-verbal. All right? By the way, we have the same concept in Gestalt therapy. They talk about the difference between poetry and verbalizing. So here, in this context, we're talking about verbalizing would be this, the misuse of the Gestalt technique with too much emphasis on yak, 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 and not enough emphasis on getting to those moments of extremes and opposites and finding new ideas in the void and all that stuff, and without So in that case, the new idea is just like the performer on top of his material, getting ideas here and now. It's what we call, what the Gestalt people would call poetic language. Language as expressing, being totally involved in the here and now experience, so that the words are being illuminated poetically rather than just coming out functionally as serving some kind of overall logical pattern or something like that. So in that sense, a Brechtian theater would be more poetic than an Aristotelian theater, where the actor is serving some kind of a spiraling super objective that he somehow knows is where it's going, whereas in a Brechtian theater, a performer is more open to the here and now inspiration. In that sense, there's a certain freedom that's there, that's not so much so in the Aristotelian and Stanislavski theater. Okay, what else we got here? And again, here's a beautiful example. Shlomo takes the Akedah moment. Here we have Abraham, totally distraught. Kill him, not to kill him. God says I should kill him, but on the other hand, God couldn't possibly mean that. So here we have a total. If that's an example, that's a perfect example of one of these stuck impasse moments where even if he tried to be rational about it and tried to solve it in some kind of a spiraling way here, he can't, because the gap is so huge that he has to be at the point where he doesn't know long enough to discover some new source of ideas,